In the middle of a swamp, the little green dinosaur called Diplodocus sees flowers growing on a wall. Using 2 snails as gloves, he scales the wall and, on the other side, can see the sun setting over the horizon. Just then, his parents call him to dinner, but Diplodocus is startled by a butterfly and falls off the cliff. At the bottom, there's a Tyrannosaurus waiting to devour the young one, but at the last second, his father saves his life and pulls him back. The dinosaur is furious that his son has taken the risk, saying that it's too dangerous on the other side of the wall. However, Diplo can no longer stand being trapped in the swamp and insists on going out to see the world. All of this is actually a comic book created by a cartoonist called Ted. He wants to make a living from his art, but the editor of the magazine where he works comes to his workshop and tells him that she needs a new character for his next book. In addition to the tight deadline, she tells Ted to put his comics aside and focus solely on his work. Left with no choice, the comic book artist begins to erase his drawings, and this affects Diplo's world, who wakes up to a loud sound coming from far away. Suddenly, the whole place is covered in a white mist, which begins to erase everything, including the little dinosaur's parents. Before he too is wiped out, his mother helps him scale the wall and Diplo flees through the forest as the mist draws ever closer. The little dinosaur runs to the end of the mountain, but underneath it is a huge sea of lava. With nowhere to escape, Diplo just waits for it to end and, as the designer finishes erasing the mountain, the dinosaur begins to fall towards the fire. Desperate, Diplo shouts that he doesn't want to be there and, mysteriously, he is transported to another world, known as Planet Fear. There, a contest between magicians is taking place, with the next contestant being the sorcerer Hocus Pocus. He tries to impress the judges by mixing magic with dance moves, but ends up accidentally turning the stereo into a mouse. To make matters worse, Diplo, who was watching from backstage, knocks an object off the set onto Hocus, causing him to fire a spell with his wand. The magic ends up hitting one of the judges, who is also turned into a rat. As a result, everyone votes to eliminate the contestant and Diplo flees the stage so as not to be discovered. Outside, the little dinosaur hides in the bushes and cries because he misses his parents. Shortly afterwards, he also hears Hocus Pocus crying about the failure of the performance and tries to calm him down. Diplo explains that his family disappeared because of a white mist and is trying to get back home. He also discovered the ability to teleport between worlds and ended up on Planet Fear. The sorcerer thinks this story is absurd, but to prove his point, the little dinosaur jumps out at him and says he doesn't want to be there anymore. Just as before, these words cause the two of them to travel through a dimensional portal, ending up on a desert planet. Hocus is impressed and asks to return to his world, but Diplo says he still doesn't know how to control this power. Meanwhile, in the real world, Ted finishes erasing the comics, but realizes that behind him, there is still a sheet of paper with drawings on it. In it, Diplo and Hocus Pocus are on the desert planet, but he doesn't remember drawing it and tries to erase it. This causes the fog to return and Diplo tells Hocus to run away before they both get sucked into it. They run as fast as they can, but the fog begins to approach rapidly. Fortunately, Diplo and Hocus are rescued by a ship, controlled by Professor Nerwasolik and his wife, Etymology. The professor says he was researching this mist, which he named the Void. He wants to know where it comes from, so he takes a sample and heads for his home in the village of Neversville. Once there, he takes everyone to his laboratory and shows them a mural with photos of all the worlds that have been hid by the Void. He deduces that this phenomenon has the same origin and, to get the answer, he has created a machine capable of detecting the coordinates of any object. He then pours some of the sample into the Void and, on the other side of the machine, the coordinates are printed on a sheet of paper. On taking a look, Diplo notices that the paper is blank, but Professor Nerwasolik believes that the sheet has hidden coordinates and orders the ship to decipher them. In the meantime, Ted is trying to create a new character, but none of his sketches are good enough. Out of ideas, he looks at the pile of sketches on the floor and realizes that, coincidentally or not, the balls of paper have taken the shape of Diplodocus. He doesn't even know that the dinosaur is alive in the comics and is traveling in search of answers. However, the ship is moving at a very slow pace and Etymology activates the ship's autopilot, controlled by a doll, which only slows down the journey even more. Hocus Pocus gets bored and tries to fiddle with the controls to make it go faster, but Diplo tries to stop him before something bad happens. As he feared, the wizard ends up pulling the cork out of the doll, causing it to deflate and the ship to lose control. Etymology tries to resolve the situation, but the ship ends up crashing in the middle of the Egyptian desert. When they go out to investigate, the group finds an Egyptian village, but its people speak a very ancient language that Diplo can't understand. Luckily, Etymology understands their language and asks how they can find the Void. They answer by pointing their fingers upwards, and at first, the group believes that the void is in the heavens. However, using his telescope, Professor Nerwaselic finds a fortress in the distance, shaped like a hand pointing to the sky. Now that they know where to go, the group thanks them for their help and heads off in the direction of the fortress. When they get there, the fortress is inhabited by huge live onions, who are in a deep sleep. These onions were also drawn by Ted for the new book, and, at that moment, he begins to erase their faces, drawing happier expressions instead. As a result, the sleepy onions are transformed into friendly beings who love to sing. The problem is that Ted gets carried away with his drawings and starts covering the whole sheet with smiling onions, causing several of them to fall into the fortress. The group escapes before being crushed by them, but Hocus and Diplo end up trapped. The professor and Etymology rush to the ship to rescue them, but in the midst of their despair, Diplo once again wishes he were far away, and he, along with Hocus, are transported to the portal. Before they go to another world, the wizard suggests that Diplo try to concentrate so that he can choose where he wants to go. The dinosaur obeys his advice and, using his huge ears, manages to control his flight and heads towards the next portal. There, he finds a forest where a gigantic snake lives, but one that appears to be friendly. Diplo asks for her help to find the coordinates on the sheet of paper, and she promises to lead them through a secret passage inside her body. Hocus doesn't think it's a good idea, but Diplo goes anyway, and, as soon as the two enter, the snake closes its mouth. It doesn't take long for the two of them to realize that they've fallen into a trap, and out of the snake comes a liquid that serves to digest its prey. Before becoming her next meal, Diplo and Hocus teleport again to the dimensional tunnel. There, the dinosaur sees a portal with the image of an erased mountain, the same one he fell into when the void took over his world. Diplo is saddened by this, but there is no time to lose, and he searches for the portal that leads to the world of Professor Norwesek in etymology. At the same time, the two of them are also looking for them and go to investigate in a region of the sea known as the Bermuda Rectangle. The place looks like a huge swamp, full of stranded pipes, ships, and submarines. Not only that, but the pipes seem to come to life and start to let out a menacing roar, which makes the professor faint. Fortunately, Diplo and Hocus arrive shortly afterwards and help their friends escape. The four of them return to the ship, and the professor tells them that he hasn't been able to find out where the void comes from, so he won't be able to save those who have been sucked into it. The dinosaur is saddened, but etymology calms him down, saying that after every storm in life, the sun shines again. Upon hearing this, Diplo lifts the blank sheet of paper towards the sky and realizes that the sun has the same rectangular shape. This means that the sun is the way to find the origin of the void, and the dinosaur is determined to go there. Despite the danger of this journey, they all agree to help Diplo and take the ship there. After hours of travel, the ship gets closer and closer to the sun, which turns out to be a huge portal, covered in light. As they get closer, the ship is pulled by a gravitational force, and the group ends up in an unknown place. At the same time, in Ted's workshop, the designer is lying on the floor, surrounded by sketches of drawings that didn't work out. As a last resort, he sends the drawings of the onions to his publisher, hoping that she will approve them and use them in the next book. To his misfortune, she calls seconds later, saying that she hated the drawings and that he only has until 9 a.m. to deliver something better. Back at the portal, the ship has been destroyed by the gravitational force, but Diplo and his friends are safe. Looking up, they see an illuminated part of the ceiling, which is none other than the sketch artist's blank sheet of paper. Right away, Ted starts drawing on it, desperately trying to create a character good enough to secure his job. After a lot of effort, he manages to draw a pink cat and believes that the publisher will like the result. As soon as it's ready, the cat crosses the sheet of paper and meets Diplo and his friends, who have been looking at everything from the other side of the portal. They finally discover that they are comics drawn by Ted, and he is the creator of the void. This only makes the little dinosaur even angrier, as he realizes that the cartoonist has erased his family to create a new character. The dinosaur then decides to talk to his creator in person and asks his friends to help him through the portal. On the other side, Ted, who is celebrating his new creation, sees the four characters, in drawing form, moving on the sheet. Confused, he tries to get a closer look, but Diplo grabs the end of his pencil and pulls him towards the sheet. Ted tries to pull his arm back, but it ends up going into the sheet, taking the form of a comic book drawing. The guy tries to run away, but Hocus Pocus uses his wand and he ends up being turned into a rat. The group manages to capture him, but the leaf portal begins to close and Hocus tries to go through it, but can't and ends up losing his nose when the passage closes. As well as Ted, his pencil also came with him, and the professor warns them that they need to get him back to his world before something bad happens. He suggests going back to the lab to come up with a plan, and Diplo takes everyone there, using his teleportation. The pink cat goes along, but she gets loose from the dinosaur and ends up in another world. With no time to lose, the group travels to Neversville and there, the dinosaur asks Ted to bring his family back with his pencil. Meanwhile, Hocus takes his pencil and tries to create a new nose, but Diplo tells him to give it back so that Ted can draw his parents. The two start fighting over the pencil and, during the fight, they end up piercing the grass with the magical object. This ends up creating a hole, similar to a sheet of paper, and on the other side they find another world, where a talking donkey lives. The group realizes that, with the pencil, it is possible to cross different worlds, as if they were tearing up reality itself. This only makes the use of the pencil even more dangerous, and the professor insists on taking the artist back to his world. Far away, in another dimension, the little pink cat ends up in front of the hut of a witch and her assistant, a wizard transformed into a mouse. He also fell victim to the spell of Hocus Pocus, who, according to the witch, was the worst student at the magic school. After the conversation, the old woman goes to get some more soup and ends up leaving the mouse alone, which is captured by the cat. When she swallows the rat, it undergoes a strange transformation and begins to grow in size. Back with the group, they rush to the lab and the doctor leaves Ted safe in a cage while he inspects the pencil. Diplo gets impatient because he wants to get his family back as soon as possible, and Hocus Pocus offers him a deal. If he takes the pencil, the two of them will go back to Planet Fear, and there, the wizard will work the magic to bring the dinosaur's parents back. If all goes well, Diplo will see his family again and the wizard will finally be the winner in the magic contest. Although unsure, the little dinosaur agrees, and so Hocus knocks over the professor's machines to distract him, while Diplo picks up the pencil. The plan works, and as soon as the dinosaur hands it to the wizard, he breaks his wand and says that he now has supreme power. Ted sees everything and, fearing that they are using the pencil the wrong way, he gets out of the cage and runs to get it back. However, Diplo uses his magic and the three of them are teleported back to Planet Fear, where the great wizarding contest is taking place. As soon as they arrive on stage, Hocus uses the magic of the pencil to cheat, making one of the contestants miss his magic. Ted then tries to snatch the man's pencil, but he draws a cage and leaves him trapped. With the way clear, Hocus announces that he has become the greatest wizard of all and will prove it on stage. Seeing his evil intentions, Diplo tries to stop him, but the wizard says he's going to bring back his parents, as he promised. He asks for a description of the two and Diplo remembers them as dinosaurs who loved him very much and tried to protect him. However, the wizard is unable to replicate these characteristics and draws two scribbled and threatening dinosaurs. One of them grabs the wizard by the tail and throws him off stage, ending his performance for good. Fortunately, the magic only lasts a short time and the dinosaurs disappear, with Hocus Pocus once again becoming the laughing stock of everyone. Embarrassed, he leaves the stage and Diplo tries to convince him to give the pencil back before he causes any more trouble. However, the wizard doesn't care and leaves, drawing springs on his feet to jump back to his house. Now Diplo doesn't know what to do and, to make matters worse, the pink cat appears through a portal. Seeing Ted trapped in his cage, she tries to capture the mouse, but the dinosaur runs away with him and the two of them teleport back to the dimensional portal. Nearby, Hocus still has the magic pencil and tries to use his powers to draw his mother. However, just as happened with the dinosaurs, he only makes a doodle of her, which then disappears in front of him. The wizard returns home saddened and suddenly the little pink cat appears in front of him. Thanks to her agility, she manages to take the man's magic pencil and runs off, scribbling all over the place. Meanwhile, at the portal, Diplo doesn't know where to go and Ted tries to calm him down. He apologizes for erasing his parents, but says he did it because his boss made him do something he didn't want to do, just to keep his job. However, he is determined to make amends for his mistake and the two return to Neversville, where they meet up again with the professor and etymology. The dinosaur apologizes for what he's done, but he's willing to make things right and has devised a plan to take Ted back to his world. His idea is to go to Planet Fear, get the pencil and force Hocus to turn Ted back into a human. To do this, they need to fix his wand, but etymology shows that she has already done this, using adhesive tape. Finally, Diplo will teleport straight to the real world, but the professor is against the idea. He warns that since the dinosaur belongs to the comic book world, if it leaves, it will disappear, just like Hocus' nose did. He then proposes another idea, based on the classic movie Journey to the Moon. In that movie, a group of astronauts arrive there using a rocket, so the professor intends to launch the pencil with his huge cannon towards the sun portal, where Ted will be sent back to the real world. Everyone supports the plan and Diplo teleports them to Planet Fear to go after Hocus Pocus. However, when they arrive at his house, they find the place full of scribbles and the sorcerer hanging upside down. The sorcerer regrets what he has done and says that the pencil is with the pink cat. The four of them then start looking for her, until Diplo finds the magic pencil lying on the ground. He quickly picks it up, but the cat appears behind him and, with a surprise attack, she swallows the pencil. Thanks to this, she undergoes yet another transformation, becoming a giant cat, able to draw whatever she wants with the power of thought. To stop her, Ted needs to turn back into a human, but Hocus reveals that he only knows the magic to turn people into mice. The situation only gets worse when the cat starts advancing towards the group, so Hocus takes back his wand and tries to turn her into a mouse. The problem is that the adhesive tape wasn't enough to fix it and the wand doesn't work. To save the group, Etymology uses her secret ability and starts singing loudly, causing the cat to be stunned. However, she soon pulls herself together and uses her magic to teleport everyone back to the Egyptian desert. Now that she has the powers of the pencil, the cat manages to follow them by opening a portal between worlds and goes on the attack. The professor and Etymology send Diplo to take Ted to the portal, while they distract the monster. However, even with his powers of teleportation, the dinosaur is unable to get to the real world without the help of the pencil. Upon returning to Egypt, Diplo finds the place completely transformed by the cat's power. At that moment, the dinosaur has the idea of sending her towards the portal with the professor's cannon, because with the powers of the pencil, she is able to create an opening between the worlds. Diplo then takes everyone back to Neversville, with the giant cat following soon after. However, they still need to lure her to the cannon, and to do so, Hocus decides to turn himself into a rat. Thanks to this, he manages to get her to the trap and, in an act of sacrifice, he jumps into the cannon, but is swallowed by the giant cat. Saddened by the loss of his friend, Diplo tells the professor to fire the cannon and the cat is sent towards the portal. As soon as she gets there, her nails manage to open the passage and, before it closes again, Diplo teleports with Ted to the real world. On the other side, the designer wakes up in the middle of his drawings, believing that it was all just a dream. However, when he looks into his workshop, he finds Diplo materialized in the real world, but shortly afterwards, the dinosaur begins to disappear. As the professor feared, Diplo doesn't belong in this world and his existence is coming to an end. Desperate, Ted asks him to return to the world of comics, but the dinosaur can no longer use teleportation. In his final moments, he thanks him for the adventure and says that his existence, as well as that of his friends, only depends on the decisions Ted makes from now on. As soon as Diplo disappears, Ted receives a call from his publisher, asking if the drawing is ready. However, Ted says that he will no longer work for the company and that from now on he will only draw what he believes in. Days later, in the dinosaur swamp, Diplo comes back into existence and meets his family again. Thanks to Ted's decision to continue drawing comics, his world has returned to normal and the little dinosaur still has his powers of teleportation. So he takes his family to Neversville to meet the professor and Etymology. As well as them, Diplo meets Hocus Pocus again, who is alive alongside his parents, whom he also accidentally turned into rats. In the end, everything turned out well for Diplo and his parents were proud of their son's courage in going beyond the limits of the swamp. Now, he and his friends are going to live out the new adventures written by Ted which, in a short time, have become a huge success and are loved by children everywhere in the real world.
Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.